Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast P is for Plog. This is my every so often experiment into podcasting. I'm still thinking of myself an amateur and not really, I don't even know what number. See, I don't even know what number it is. Hang on, I'm just going to pause and come back in a second. Okay, I'm back. I know what episode it is. This is episode 38. P is for Pioneer, as chosen by Cleggy. Let's get going.
Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it.
So for this one, I wanted to be a bit different. I've got so many topics I wanted to talk about, and I've just not got around to doing a podcast because I've been so focused on my Run for Promises endeavor that I'm doing. So just for those that don't know, I'm going to put a link below that's going to be talking about what the adventure is. Basically, I'm going to be doing 40 ultra marathons in 40 days, 50.6 kilometers each day, which means in 40 days I would have done 2026 kilometers. The idea is that I'm going to be not collecting money. I never like to collect money for these things. I think if people want to give money to a charity, give it to a charity that you believe in and not one that I believe in. So that's always my sort of viewpoint on these things. I love what people do with the charity events I do. It's just not for me. So what am I doing instead? Well, I'm going to be I want to collect promises, simple acts of kindness. It could be as simple as, hey, I promise to pick up a piece of trash every time I go for a run, every time I walk the dog. It could be something you already do. Just put it on a piece of paper or just put it online. So the idea is you'll be able to go online and tell people what your act of kindness is. Maybe it is you smile at the cashier at the supermarket. If you put that online, then someone can see it and then someone else can go, oh, that's easy. I can do that. I'm going to do it as well. And then suddenly you've inspired someone else into an act of kindness. So that's the idea behind it. It's going to be starting on August the 7th all the way through to September the 15th. There's a link below if you're interested in sponsoring me as a company. Or more importantly, what would be really cool is people often ask how they can help me. Can they support me? I don't want money from people really. What would be fantastic is if you sent the information out to your boss or to the boss's boss or to the head of the company and just say, can we not support him? That's where I want to get the money from the companies. Promote the companies that are willing to put investment in me, and in return we can reach a bigger audience. That's the whole point. Is the idea is that, if I've got 3 brands, it doesn't matter what those brands are. Maybe it's something that I don't use or even something I don't believe in. It doesn't matter. I can reach their customers. Together we can make an impact, and it doesn't matter whether a good example is a vegan product. Even if it's not a vegan product, they still got customers who perhaps just don't want to do the veganism, but they can still do acts of kindness, right? So that's the idea behind it, acts of kindness, and I'm trying to get some support. So if you just pass it on to whoever you work for. No company is bad enough for me to say no to. Well, actually, there are a couple, but I won't tell you about those. Anyway, I'm digressing. Today is P is for Pioneer. I've got so many things I wanted to talk about, but I've not been doing it. So what I did was I just put out a message saying, can someone give me a P word? And then I reached out to a friend, Cleggy, so an old dear friend from uni days. And he suggested a few. And the one that sort of just jumped at me was Pioneer. And so I'm going to talk about Pioneer as today's subject in the podcast, because really that's at its heart of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do something that, I call myself the world's first professional plogger. Now, there are people that do plogging and it's part of their career, but I say I'm the world's first professional plogger because that is the core of my career, is to go out for a run, pick up some trash, tell a positive story about it. That is my core business. And so that's the reason why I think I can justify calling myself the world's first. I'm open to being challenged on that. But that's what I'm saying. I'm pioneering the term. God damn it. So how does that lead into being a pioneer? Well, I think the first thing is I never expected this path to sort of be made for me. It's only when I lost my job that it became open. It was always something I dreamt of, but I never thought, oh, look at this face and this age. It's not something that's going to inspire brands to do it. But I had the opportunity, so I thought, why not? And my intention on this is, if I can make it work, and it's, every week is a struggle. I'm now already thinking, is this the last year I'm doing this, that I'm able to do this? Because, even trying to get sort of brands together for this huge adventure, which I think is really an awesome adventure, obviously, because I sort of came up with the idea, but it's really hard to get brands in there. So you kind of go, oh man, maybe it's just because of my age or whatever, but maybe it's a young person's game. Maybe, like running brands are a good example. I think what you see is the running brands are really focused on youth at the moment. Do they want sort of someone who's nearly 60 years old as being someone that they sort of promote? Now, there are definitely old people that you see being promoted, but perhaps I'm just not old enough. I need to get a 6 in my age. So I've got to wait a year before that happens. So maybe I'm just not old enough. I'm in that sort of no man's zone of not being old enough to be cool. Who knows? And then that's what you see with sort of a lot of the running brands. They just don't find it exciting enough. I'm jogging around in a banana suit picking up trash. It's not really performance related, even though, how many people would even be willing to run 40 ultra marathons in a row? There's not a huge population in the world that would be able to do that or willing to do that. I think willing is the key one, because I think a lot of people could do it even though they don't think they could. And I'm proof of that. I want to sort of just show people that age is not a limiter. That I made that reference in a shop. They went, "Oh, that's such a good thing." Now, age is not a limiter. Do not be your own limiter in your life. Just give yourself a chance to fly. So I am sort of trying to pioneer, but the intention is, if I can get it to succeed, then we've got a method that will work for others. So what I'd love to see is other people get inspired by what I'm doing, and they go, no, I'm picking up trash. Why can't I make a living from it? If these influencers can do the most, I'm going to be a bit abusive here now. If I see some Insta reels or things on TikTok, and I just go, seriously, you have zero creativity. You have zero. There is absolutely nothing that you've done that has value other than being vaguely entertaining for 5 seconds. How are you earning sort of the money when someone who is trying to do something a bit more meaningful? I'm not putting myself in the limelight here. I'm just saying plogging in general, I think has value. It has a purpose in there. Surely they should be able to, if these other people can earn money, surely they people who are picking up trash, who are trying to do kindness in the world and trying to do something positive in the world, surely they should have the ability to earn a living in the same way. A bit like teachers and nurses and etc. Why are they so undervalued? It is just baffling how we have sort of weighted the value in terms of financial reward on the wrong, on one group of people, when you look at the other group and you go, wow, how are they struggling to make ends meet? Oh gosh, that's got a little bit heavy, isn't it? Anyway, back to pioneering. I was actually looking up the sort of the term. I was like, just to give myself some inspiration on what I wanted to say, and I just looked at the definition. It was innovator, groundbreaker, someone who's first in the field, and I thought that was the obvious one. That was the one I knew. But then there was like ecology. And a pioneer species refers to the first hardy plants or organisms that grow in a barren or disrupted area to start an ecological cycle of life. And I think that's fantastic. This sort of the idea that there's this pioneer species that has to be hardy to survive in that environment so that others can prosper later on. And in effect, that's really is sums up what I'm sort of trying to do. I'm really sort of battling things here in my sort of trying to get this as a profession, full-time profession, and avoid doing part-time work, just really make this as a full-time profession. And there is a lot of, you do need to have a thick skin, you do need to have a hardy attitude to be able to sort of get through this. And it really feels like I am perhaps trying to be that pioneer species. This makes me sound a bit grandiose or something, but I'm thinking of myself as this little thorny bush that's just putting up with a load of rubbish. Well, picking up rubbish. Oh, that was a good one. and talking of hardships, there's been a few things that have come in the last week or so that those hardships are starting to sort of come. I've had a couple of people. I'll tell the story, which is, it was on Bevrijdingsdag, so it was on sort of Freedom Day here in the Netherlands, and there was just so much trash. It was just awful, and I was just picking up trash going through the streets. Just sort of, I was getting a little bit sort of down about it, thinking this is just ridiculous. People, this is such a Liberation Day, and sort of Freedom Day is such an important, has such a depth of importance on it, that it's just so sad that people are just littering the streets. It was drink the can, throw it on the ground, stamp on it, carry on, get the next can, and it was shameful. I just filled up bags of trash going up and down the same street. But I was sort of just going through it, but then there were two young guys. I don't even know what age. Let's say 17. I'm going to guess 16, 17. I don't know what age they need to be on mopeds. It was a pedestrian street, and then suddenly they came hurtling down, and they were just hurtling down the street, just weaving in between families with kids at such a ridiculous speed. It was just so blatantly dangerous that it sort of I just reacted to it, and I sort of chased them down the street. This old guy running down the street with a bag of trash in his hand, following these two kids weaving in and out of people, and really crowded streets, just weaving in and out of them. And I sort of caught them up, and I had my Meta Ray-Bans on, so I had my sort of glasses, and I started videoing them, caught up with them, said, look, what you shouldn't be doing that. I'm recording this, and I'm going to hand it over to the police. They just were completely dismissive of it. Got in clear focus the number plate and their faces as well. One of them just smiled at me, and then they just both went off and they were gone. Then later on, I found a police car and said, look, I've got this on film. It's really in clear definition, sort of the number plate, their faces as well, and what they were doing. And the police said, no, we can't do anything. We have to see it ourselves to be able to make an arrest. And I was like thinking, oh, that's a bit ridiculous. I put a post on it on Instagram, a story about it on Instagram, because I was just thinking, this is a bit, how are we got here to this state? I can understand that the glasses are a bit of a hot topic. I'm really careful about when I film. This one was, I needed some proof, so I was just filming with it. But I can understand, the AI issue, and also sort of public space. But I thought this one sort of said, okay, but in this case it was justified. But because of all that, I think that's the reason why they can't submit it as evidence against someone, or for whatever reason. So it was a bit strange. You kind of go, if I see, if I recorded a murder, what happens then? If there was someone seriously got injured, then is it submissible? It just makes I couldn't understand why it was. Maybe it's just too difficult for them to look it all up and everything. No idea. Anyway, I did that, posted it online, and then a bit later on, a guy just said, came up to me. So this was a couple of hours later on. Said, why did you chase those kids down? You're not a policeman. And we had this whole discussion. I was like, this is just so crazy. I'm like, they were so dangerous. I think you need to be. I think it was the right thing to do. even if nothing did happen about it. I don't know if it is a direct result of this. So I don't know if it is because, I found it a bit weird that this person a couple of hours later saw me and had this conversation with me. And maybe more people, maybe there was a talking going around about a group or what it is. But then that day, the next day, I got a couple of trolls on Facebook and Instagram, just saying stupid things, and I was really proud how I sort of dealt with it. I sort of said to people, if you get a troll, then the best way to, for me, the best way that I feel comfortable dealing with them is be polite back, and just use it as an excuse to write more, to tell more, to explain more, to actually use it as an option to say, hey, I can explain myself further here. So that's exactly what I did. I sort of explained myself further about what I do. You're attention grabbing or you're moaning all the time. It was actually, they flagged the sort of 2 of my moaning posts that I sort of do every few months. And they said, oh, yeah, you just moan a lot, don't you? And I said, oh, just, come out and, you've hit the 2 negative posts. Occasionally it does happen that I do moan. I try and be positive. Why don't you come out plogging with me one time? You can look at it here and you can find out all the details. Come along and then you can see how much fun it is. And then they didn't really like that. I also said, thank you for helping me in the algorithm by you sort of raising comments here. Then, what you're doing is actually helping promote my post, because it's going to be higher up in the weighting of the algorithm because it's got more engagement in the comments. So thank you very much for doing that and for letting me explain a bit more. Then it stopped. Then there was one comment that came back and it got abusive, and I went, okay, now if there's not going to be anything constructive or anything that I can respond to, or it's just a blatant insult, petty insult that has no foundation at all, then I'm going to just stop this comment. I'm not going to reply anymore. So, but we had some sort of engagement. It gave me a chance to speak. So that was some sort of like hardship. Another hardship that I had as well was just some sort of comments outside of social media about sort of attention seeking and things. And one of the things that made me realize is I just do not let people see the depth of what I do. So I am trying to pioneer, but I'm trying to do it in a way that I'm most proud of. So a good example of that is if someone says, you're attention seeking with the banana suit, then why are they saying that? For me, it made it clear from the comments that I received outside of social media. It made me realize that people don't fully, what I've got to really do in this, if I'm a hardy species that needs to survive, I have to make sure people know that there is a depth to this. This is, yes, I am attention seeking. My hand will be the first to go up if the question is Paul an attention seeking diva? My hand will go up quicker than anyone else's, because absolutely. But I'm doing it in the hope that someone sees what I'm doing. And that is the most important thing is I can only inspire people if they see me trying to inspire them. So everything is driven for attention seeking. But the thing that I think I'm the most proud of is how hard I work behind the scenes. And I need to make sure that people see that. And I just forget that. I forget that people perhaps don't see the message. I've been doing it so long, sometimes you forget that people need to be reminded about that. So I did a post this week that said, if people see the banana suit, they think attention seeking, yes. But, I did and I actually did it in reference to the Balmer run, which I did over on Saturday. So I did a half marathon in the evening. So what I said on the post was, look, what people saw was a guy running in a banana suit for a half marathon. Hopefully they saw that he picked up trash, and and then I said, during the day I picked up 200 liters of trash. During the week, I picked up 1,000 liters of trash. during that day, I didn't just do the half marathon. I'd also done 15 kilometers in the morning because I ran to park run. I didn't do a park run, but I ran to park run, and then I ran back, and then I run to the train station. So in all, I sort of ended up doing close to a marathon on that day. People only saw the half marathon. The other thing is I ran a half marathon, but I got there early enough to see the 5K, to support the 5K, to support the children's run, to support the 10K, and I lost my voice doing it. I tried my hardest to be engaged during the event and support the people that were doing the running. And the Balmer run was, the 5K and the children's run were just so amazing. Seeing these people that they are not runners. They are not, a lot of them were not runners. They were running over the finish line, hand in hand, just really excited to finish the 5K. There were people there with shoulder bags over the shoulders. I was thinking, why are you running a 5K with a shoulder bag? It looks like you're going shopping. But they were just doing it. They were just having a great time doing something that was so outside of what they normally do. It was so inspirational. When it got to the half marathon, it was just full of the regular crowd. Suddenly it was a very different type of run. It was like, oh, I know that person, I know that person, I know that person. It was all familiar faces, or a lot of it was familiar faces. The 5K, unfamiliar faces. It was brilliant. Loved it. Loved seeing people doing something that they wouldn't normally do. It was just brilliant. So I love supporting those. And then in the morning, I ran the 15K I ran in the morning was to go and support parkrun. I just was there on the sideline cheering people on. I wasn't a volunteer for that day. I wasn't a participant in the day. I just wanted to go along, cheer people, have a coffee afterwards and say hi to some people. That was a full-on day. When you see the banana suit, I think so. I need to really make sure that people see that and see the effort that's involved in it, so that they can see, hang on, look, maybe he is an idiot in a banana suit, but he's a bloody hard-working idiot in a banana suit. And I think that's what I really want to make sure is people know that they can still call me an idiot. Happy with that, but I want them to also see exactly how hard I work behind that. Stupidly, perhaps, perhaps I shouldn't. I should just sort of just do the easy path and just have like a sort of a nice easy time doing it. I'll probably be more effective doing that, but for me it has to have that sort of that depth to it that I'm really proud of, that the 17-year-old person, for those that remember the story, the 17-year-old version of myself, to make him proud. So that's, I have to sort of be more obvious about that. And it's the same, it's actually the same thing that came out with, so recently we had a race in Leyden, sort of, and a young person died. I'm not going to cover too much about that, but it was heartbreaking. I also have to make sure that people, I'm part of that influencer group that is trying to do crazy things, and I do not look like Usain Bolt or anything like that. I don't have that, or I don't have that runner's physique. So for me to do the 40 days, 40 ultras, I have to really let people know. One of the things I have to do as well is show people the training. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing a lot more of, is let people see the training that's involved in it. I am the reason why. There are very strong reasons why I can do, or I'm willing to try and do, because the most important thing is I'm trying to do something I don't know if I can, because I've never done it before, so I can't say I can do it. I've done 31 marathons in a row, but 31 marathons and 40 ultras are very different things. It's going to be a very different type of race, and it's a bit like when you do your training, when you train for a marathon, that going from 36 kilometers to 42 is a nightmare, and then it's even more so to go from 42 to 50. So those extra kilometers are going to be really tough every day for 40 days, but I'm determined to do it. But I need to make sure that people know that, look, he does look a bit wobbly, but I have to make sure that people know that there are 46 years of running that I've been a runner for 46 years. It doesn't mean I'm a brilliant runner, but my body has been running for 46 years. It's used to doing a pace. So I've got that. And also, I've built up over those years more and more endurance for sort of the long distances. For years I did sort of 2 marathons a year, which doesn't sound like a lot these days, what people can do. Primarily because of the shoes. In all reality, the shoes just mean that you recover so quickly after a marathon event. So I used to do 2 marathons a year, thinking I was sort of pushing myself really hard, and then that built up, and and now I'm doing 100 kilometers a week again. I'm back onto 100 kilometers a week, and I'll be pushing up to 120 kilometers a week as part of my training. I need to make sure that people see the training that's involved in that. I think one of my new things that I really need to make sure people see is I am trying to pioneer in this space, but I need them to see how hard I'm working at it. And I think that, I know how hard I'm working. You probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you know how hard I'm working at it as well. But I just need to see everyone. I need to make sure that everyone sees it. But I need to be a bit careful to make sure it's not sort of, look how cool I am, which gives me a bit of I sort of start breaking out into sweats if I think I'm just coming across that way. So it is tough. There've been quite a few things that have sort of happened this year, and they're all in that pioneering space of, when you break into new ground, it's, there is no formula that I can follow. I'm having to make it up as I go along, and sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work. And it does feel like it's constantly working a little bit better than it was. It's just not working at the speed that I want, or need. But I'll keep on trying. So that's my sort of pioneering story. My word, I've waffled on for quite a long time without any structure. Perhaps I should do this more often. Can you think of a P word that I should do for my next podcast? Leave it in the comments, and then if I like it, I'll pick it up. So, Cleggs, thank you very much for P is for pioneering. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.